today, Orange and Blue Today, breaks down a few different things. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and so much to talk about. We've got two shows scheduled, Mace. OBT2 coming up later tonight, YouTube exclusive, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. But I have a feeling, Andrew Mason, we might be doing OBT3 as free agency frenzy has started across the National Football League. Yeah, crack open.
Let's crack open. Yes. A cold pop.
A cold pop indeed, and a cold pop starting because
Caffeinated.
The Denver Broncos have made a move to start with. We're going to get to all their moves. We're going to start with the Jerry Jeudy trade going down on Saturday. Mace, I was surprised that there was more of a market for him maybe than Courtland Sutton. I predicted that Sutton would be traded, not Jeudy. Sorry, Hans, wrong guess. Judy's traded to the Browns for a 5th and a 6th this year.
Some of it also may go to the value of the receivers in the Broncos planning and how they're going to go about things for the 2024 season. Who had more value? Which one of those two may have been blocking somebody? You could say that maybe Jerry Jeudy was blocking Marvin Mims Jr. Well, now there's an opening. Marvin Mims Jr. looks like he is a starter at this point. I mean, basically what you're saying is, even though I don't know if you're relying on Tim Patrick, ideally maybe you're thinking, okay, you're starting 3 at Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims Jr., and Tim Patrick, while having someone else ready to go. Brandon Johnson, seeing where he goes. Get Jalen Virgil back, and the Broncos really like what he was doing and flashing before he injured his knee last August in San Francisco. And oh, by the way, you may add somebody in the draft as well from a very deep receiver class. So I think it wasn't just who you could get more for on the market. I think some of it was also, if you have to keep one of them, who's better to hang around this year, and that's probably Courtland Sutton.
That's probably Courtland Sutton, and he did the old Will Smith, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like he's looking around the living room, everything's gone. Like, okay, Court, you're last man standing, but he can be a big part of whatever quarterback they're going to have. On the Jeudy thing, Mace, the 5th and 6th rounder, I wrote about this in Mile High Monday because I saw our fearless leader, James Marilat, tweet like, oh, so they traded Jeudy for a couple of guys that won't ever play or won't do anything. I said, no, not so fast, Go Tech. Because if you're drafting well in the 5th and 6th rounder, don't make me say their names. You can get quality starters and Pro Bowl players. Or perhaps the 5th and 6th rounders are part of a deal to help you maneuver within the draft, whether that's getting a 2nd round pick that you currently don't have, or maybe it's a throw-in part of a move up in front of the Giants now, in the 1st round. So 5th and 6th rounder, they got something. It doesn't mean it's nothing, Mace.
Doesn't mean it's nothing. And don't forget, you could also turn around and use that 5th or 6th round pick maybe to get a bridge quarterback. Hypothetically, what if you could get Sam Howell for that 5th round pick?
Right.
There have been some reports about the Broncos even kicking tires and discussing Zach Wilson from the Jets. I mean, obviously, it's going to depend who and what you can get, what the value is. If you had to trade for somebody who isn't in the mix elsewhere, who had been a starter, a young quarterback, give me Sam Howell over Zach Wilson all day long. I mean, Zach Wilson, bottom of the league in almost every metric last year, starting in place of Aaron Rodgers for the New York Jets. Sam Howell, okay, he's a few spots above, not the bottom, but I think there's more that you can work with Sam Howell than Zach Wilson. And oh, by the way, Sam Howell played well in a season in college with fans in the stands, which Zach Wilson really didn't do. And I think that led to a misjudgment on Zach Wilson in the 21 draft.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Remember the Mahomes comparisons? Those legitimately happened, not on this show. Of course, we didn't exist at the time.
We didn't have a show. We didn't have this show.
You and I weren't saying that, but there were others saying, look he could throw sidearms like Mahomes. Either way, Howell for a 6. And we're going to get to the Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins things. That's for OBT2. So we're going to talk plenty of that. But like this move is... I hate to sound like Gone in 60 Seconds. A brother's love is a brother's love. This move is a move. Okay. They could have sat there and done nothing. Yes, they could have got a 3rd rounder during the year. I'm not in the whole woulda, coulda, shoulda world, Mace. What are they doing now? They're rebuilding now. You can't complain about a rebuild when that's what they've needed to do for some time.
Yeah, I mean, you just look back and say, oh, if they hadn't beaten Green Bay and Kansas City right before the bye week, that maybe you'd have more draft capital. But it's the cliche. You can't cry over spilled milk. It's done. I mean, how do you get it right moving on? Frankly, at that moment, Saturday, heading into the start of the new league year, with Jerry Jeudy playing 1 year on not a cheap contract, right? The 5th-year option, $12.987 million for a receiver who's never had a 1,000-yard season. That's not, that's not something where a team's going to say, oh, we're getting great value here. No. It might be fair value, but not great value. And it's only 1 year team control. I mean, we see it in baseball sometimes. If a player has more value on the trade market, if they're traded at the deadline a year before their contract year, right? Because you're getting 2 pennant races rather than 1. So you fast forward, if you don't make a deal at the deadline, all of a sudden you're getting less. That's what happened with Jerry Jeudy here. Just less valuable. This was the most they could do.
Yeah, this is what they did, and this is what they could do, and we're moving on, and with some exciting players, like you mentioned, with the Marvin Mims and others, and likely a draft pick. Maybe it's one of those Washingtons that we saw at the Shrine Bowl earlier this year. Either way.
Do you prefer Malik or Taj? Because I think I've settled on Malik being the guy that I want of the 2 Washington.
Malik I have graded
from
higher.
Virginia. Yeah.
Taj is a little splashier for me. So Malik is graded higher. But I'd take a Taj if you can't get a Malik,
Yeah.
Give me a Washington receiver. That'll be good.
Yeah. Not a Washington receiver, not a receiver who plays for Washington. Those guys are going to probably go a little too early for where the Broncos are going to pick wide receivers.
Right.
So, but if you can't, maybe that's the theme of the draft at wide receiver. If you can't get a receiver from the University of Washington, get a receiver with the last name Washington.
Yes, I like that. It's a good strategy for the Broncos.
And give me Malik. Give me Malik Washington. Yes.
Where's he from?
Virginia, baby.
Love it. Give me Malik too, just so Mace can keep saying that. Either
He's
way,
a wahoo.
We know that this wide receiver room is going to look a little bit different. We don't know yet who the quarterback will be. Again, OBT2, we're going to deal a lot in that. Part of the rebuild includes the Justin Simmons move. We talked about it on last week's show. Then they bring PJ Locke back, something you had predicted, Mace. Okay, so we kind of expect that. Honestly, I didn't expect them to get Brandon Jones, another Texas secondary player who was a 3rd-round pick for the Dolphins a few years ago. Tore his ACL 2022, late 2022. So, now if you look at social networking, Dolphins fans are like, you guys overpaid for Brandon Jones. It's a 3-year, $22.5 million with $12.5 million guaranteed. Are you a little bit surprised after they signed Locke that they go get another safety, Mace? Because I was.
Mildly, but at the same time, as much as we like Caden Stearns when he plays, can you trust him to stay healthy? That's the thing. And do you know that JL Skinner is going to take the next step? I mean, it'd be nice if he did. But, not only that, PJ Locke's, missed some time to injuries last year as well. So you have 3 players who at safety in Locke, Stearns, and Jones who have recent injury concerns. Now, Brandon Jones had the ACL in 2022, stayed pretty healthy in 2023. Not really concerned about that. An interesting thing about Brandon Jones is most of last year he was a backup. He didn't get his job back. He was a rotational safety until down the stretch. Injuries took their toll. He got his playing time back. I think this feels, and I'm not saying that it's going to work out this way, but you remember how the Broncos, they let Eric Decker walk and they brought in Emmanuel Sanders back in 2014, 10 years ago. Sanders was cheaper, but you're saying, okay, he can play above this contract value going into a bigger role. And I think that's what the Broncos are looking at with Brandon Jones. And he also is somebody you can move around. He's a very good blitzer. This is something you go back a couple of years ago. Bring him on the safety blitz. He can cause some problems. Good instincts, very, very quick, can diagnose the gaps, shoot through, can be a plus player there. So if you want to throw that element into your defense, he has it as well. I think it's a move that makes sense. But the other thing also, it's a reminder. The Broncos are trying to moneyball this thing a little bit. And what I mean by that is if you saw, whether you read the book Moneyball or you saw the film adaptation, probably the film adaptation is a little more accessible. So I'm going to reference that. And if you saw the movie, you may recall the scene where Jonah Hill's character, Peter Brand, who was an amalgamation of a couple of real life people, says that there is a roster of 25 players that can win that we can afford, right? The Brandon Jones, PJ Locke thing is kind of moneyballing this. If you're the Broncos, but you saved $14.5 million on Justin Simmons. The average per year annual value, assuming that for Brandon Jones is just the base, although it could go up with some incentives. But the average annual value for those contracts, PJ Locke, $3.5 million, Brandon Jones, $6.67 million. So effectively, you're saving a little over $4 million for two players in the space you created by cutting one player in Justin Simmons. And oh, by the way, there's also something to be said that a market inefficiency is at safety, as in young safeties take time to get it right.
Right.
But you get to second contract safeties, there's value there, especially when you're talking about somebody like Brandon Jones, who has started, lost his role, but probably could get it back and has the chance to be a plus player. This makes sense. I favored Jeremy Chin a little more. I know you did as well, but it is a perfectly cromulent move.
It makes some sense, Mason. We always say, watch what they do, not what they say. And the chat room's going on and on about JL Skinner because we had talked, okay, bring PJ Locke back. You've got Caden Stearns and you have JL Skinner there, who they have praised. They have said good things about JL. But you and I both looked at each other multiple times last year during the weeks and be like, is this the week? Is this the week?
Yeah.
It never was the week. So now adding Jones, it seems maybe not a gut punch to Skinner in his development or what they could think of him, but it's like, okay, well, I thought maybe Locke and Skinner would be competing for that spot. Now it seems Jones and Locke will compete.
Well, I think what this allows you to do, if JL Skinner flourishes, you have a good problem, right? And the other thing is Caden Stearns is in the final year of his rookie deal. PJ Locke is on a very affordable 2-year contract. If JL Skinner comes in and earns that job, earns his way up, you don't bring back Stearns, and then Locke maybe returns to his third safety role, and that contract wouldn't be completely unreasonable for that, right?
Right.
There's still a path for JL Skinner, and I would be shocked if the Broncos add a safety in the draft. I expect JL Skinner is going to be on this team. I think they'll start the season with 4 safeties. They'll start with Delarian Turner-Yell on the PUP list coming off the late season ACL that he had. And your 4 safeties on the roster are going to be Brandon Jones, PJ Locke, Caden Stearns, and JL Skinner. And that means if he's one of 4 safeties, he's probably going to get a jersey because he's going to have a special teams role, especially with Turner-Yell still working his way back. So Skinner's going to be in the mix. And if he flourishes and if he makes the level jump in practice, they won't hesitate to give him the job because nothing in these contracts says they're married to anybody at safety.
Right. In a way, Mace, are they kind of hedging their bets? Not that I like that because I kind of don't, but they've assembled so much talent. It's like, okay, now talent, go compete. And whoever comes out at the top. I mean, the only way they could fail in this is 1, injuries, and then 2, if none of these guys develop in the way that they thought.
Yeah, and this is another thing. You want to have a lineup to where if a prospect fails to launch, you're covered. It's the interesting thing about center as well, because you lose Lloyd Cushenberry today. There's a lot of confidence in that building in Alex Forsythe and Luke Wattenberg. But if neither one of them launch, what's the contingency plan, right? I imagine the contingency plan may literally be, okay, if they don't launch, go get whoever is left on the market because inevitably there are veterans who can still play, who are still out there even as you get to August, right? So you just kind of keep your eye on that. Who's left out there to bring in? Brandon Jones meant your butt was covered today. But I think at center, part of it is also they want to get Forsythe and Wattenberg out there. And I imagine they may split the reps when you get to OTAs as you start trying to figure things out. It's a little bit different with JL Skinner, especially because, unlike Wattenberg has some snaps on his ledger in the NFL in the regular season. JL Skinner's got 2 defensive snaps on his ledger. So I think basically this doesn't mean JL Skinner is out of the mix. It does mean he has to show some progress on the practice field, but that's it.
Yeah, I don't mind that sort of pressure for a young player like a JL Skinner. It's Orange and Blue today. Again, we've got so much to get to. We will have OBT2. That's at 6 p.m. Mountain, a YouTube exclusive. We'll talk about quarterbacks. We'll talk more about Lloyd Cushenberry. Lloyd, moving on, and why they haven't gotten any running backs, Mace. That's for the next show, but I got a ton to say about that.
Because in this first show, I know you hate this, but we've got to talk about Wil Lutz.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was my final topic as we wrap up today's show, because you wanted to keep him around. One, I personally don't care about kickers, so but it's an important part. Special teams was money for this team last year, and Lutz, it just makes a lot of sense, right?
Best field goal success rate by a Broncos kicker in 10 years. You have to go back to Connor Barth coming in to replace Brandon McManus on place kicks back in 2014 for the last time a Broncos kicker on field goals was as accurate as Wil Lutz. So you have that. He was an upgrade over Brandon McManus, objectively, no question. But the other thing in play, Sean Payton went through kickers like mad. He went through kickers like tissues in his first 10 seasons as New Orleans head coach, right? I believe it was 10 kickers in 10 years. Then he gets Wil Lutz in 2016. Baltimore lets him go because Baltimore's got a Hall of Fame-bound kicker in Justin Tucker, of course. So the Saints bring in Wil Lutz, stabilizes the position, except for the year he missed injury in 2020. Sean Payton didn't have to worry about his kicker. And head coaches, unless they're special teams head coaches don't like thinking about kickers. It's just go out there, make the kick, and then I don't have to worry about it, right? Let the special teams coaches handle that. Let the kicker take care of business. Part of it is kicker is such a different job than anything in football, which I think is part of why you don't embrace it, Cecil, because, I think you're the person who says kickers aren't real football players, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've gotten in trouble for saying that, but yeah, I've said it.
I believe you're wrong. Kickers are football players. It's part of the game. It's putting the foot in football. So are punters. As I am very much on the punters are people too train. But I digress. But Sean Payton and most head coaches, unless you're John Harbaugh, haven't come up on special teams. They don't want to think about special teams. They don't want to think about the kicker. They just want to assume that's going to get the job done. And if something goes wrong, sometimes the head coach gets upset. Sean Payton, we know he can get upset. Wil Lutz has proven that he can handle those ups and downs of Sean Payton. And Sean Payton trusts him. So this is something, it's like the guarantee on the box or like Linus's security blanket. It makes you sleep a little better at night knowing that you've got Wil Lutz. I think Sean Payton will feel better because now he doesn't have to think about the kicker. He doesn't have to think about place kicking. He's got a guy he trusts. Wil Lutz, he sticks with a coach in an environment where he knows he can succeed. He knows it works for him. But it was wild that he had that agreement with Jacksonville earlier in the day where he would have, again, replaced Brandon McManus, just like he did here. And then he decided to end up staying in Denver. You wonder what conversations went into it. You wonder if Sean Payton was involved in those conversations because I don't think Sean Payton wants to get another kicker. I think he's very happy with Wil Lutz. And when Will became available last year, right before the start of the season, because he lost the competition with Blake Grupe down in New Orleans, I think it made Sean very happy. I think it was like excellent. Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen, as the Emperor once said.
Well, Payton is the Emperor in this situation. And Mesa, happy Sean Payton makes me happy because, well, maybe things will run a little smoother.
A happy Cecil Lammey makes me happy.
Well, good. I'm happy doing this show with you. I'm happy that we have OBT2 coming up because we have a ton more to say. Large quarterback conversation. I'm going to complain about them not getting Antonio Gibson. So heartbroken, Mace. But
I love Antonio.
I know.
Anyway,
so we've got much more to say. You're also on Denver Sports Tonight, which you could watch on our YouTube channel. So that's coming up, Mace. So we got more to say. And if there is a move at quarterback, programming note, we're going to be doing OBT3. I don't think we've ever unleashed OBT3 yet, have we?
Nope, but tonight might be the night to do it. I mean, hey, once remember when the Broncos agreed to terms with Case Keenum back in 2018? They did it like at 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That might be look, if something goes down late at night, it might. I'd say tonight, keep your phone on, because I might be texting you and saying, dude, we got to go on. We got to do a show. We got to make this happen.
Let's do it. All right. Ready.
If it's late at night, we're going to do it.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's fun.
Can't wait.
That Case Keenum thing, we have a friend that did an overnight show on the Fan. So
very good friend of ours. Yep.
I think we went from midnight till 6. And then Schlereth and Evans took over. So it's like, yeah, I mean, we did that for Case Flippin' Keenum. So you bet your ass Mason I'll be here if they get a quarterback.
We should do it for Sam Darnold.
Darnold's going to go to Minnesota.
You should do it for Sam Howell.
Oh, yes. I'd break my 20-minute rule for Sam Howell. You know how much of a stickler I am for that, Mace.
Oh, wow.
That's right. Okay, we're wrapping up. OBT2 coming up 6 p.m. All right, here on our YouTube channel. Make sure to help us out on YouTube by doing what, Mace?
Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid.
Very good. He's Mace. I'm Cecil. OBT is BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.